as well as hosting in-person events. We are doing virtual events, trips, classes, and for a full list of everything, you can check our website, politics-prose.com. I'm just going to go over a few things today before we get started. If you've not silenced your cell phone, if you could do that now or turn it off, either one is good. When we get time to open the floor for questions, we have a standing microphone in front of this pillar here. If you can line up to the right of the pillar and be sure to speak into the microphone so everyone can hear your question and we can hear it on the recording as well. You'll be able to watch that back on the YouTube channel as well. Following the Q&A, we'll have a signing up here at this table. If you've not purchased the book, you can do so behind the register. Again, we'll ask you to line up to the right-hand side of the pillar, and we'll probably come by and ask for personalizations just to speed things up a bit. And when the event is finished, if we can just ask if you can fold up your chairs, lean them against something sturdy, that would just help us out a bit. All right, so without further ado, we're very excited to be welcoming Roz Chast. She's an iconic cartoonist who needs very little introduction. She is synonymous with the New Yorker cartoons, in which she first appeared in 1978 and has since been published more than 1,000 times. As well as having her work gracing the cover numerous times, she has created several books of her own, winning the National Book Critics Circle Award and the Kirkus Prize, and becoming a New York Times bestseller along the way. In her new book, she illustrates her own dream world, a place that is sometimes creepy, but as always, in true Roz Chast fashion, hilarious. Please join me in welcoming Roz Chast.
Thank you all for coming. I'm really thrilled to be back here. Is this working? Yep. Good. And we can bring the lights down just a little tiny bit. Oh, good. Thank you. Good. I like to start with this slide a little bit. I was asked by a cartoonist friend of mine, is that your mother? And I said, no, that's me. I'm 11. And, I kind of like look back over the years to this picture and I think, I was a pretty gloomy, weird kid. And just, and I don't think I knew it at the time, but I had a sort of strange childhood in a lot of ways. My parents were a lot older. I was the only child. They were in their 40s, mid-40s when they had me, and most of their friends were childless, and I don't think they really quite knew what to do with a kid. This was 1966. This was the swinging 60s. I looked like I stepped off the boat from, like, Bialystok or something. It's just like, I do not speak English. I wear Chile, I wear babushka. So, anyway. I'm going to show some cartoons. This is Pigeon Little. The sky is falling. Oh, look, part of a bagel. This is Live, Love, Laugh. I just can't stand those things. This is I told you so, but it's funny. My parents used to think that my cartoons, I was making some fun of them sometimes, and I would completely lie and say, no, these are just sort of general parents. But I got it given back to me because this cartoon actually came from life. Once when one of my kids was in the living room and she was doing her homework. And there's just nothing more revolting in the eyes of a teenager than the adult human body. And if you want to gild that lily of disgust, just do a little kind of dance. And so she was listening to some hip-hop music, and I did a little dance, and she looked up and she said, "Mom, stop, you're hurting me." And I asked, it was so funny that I asked if I could use it as a gag line, and she said, okay. So anyway, this is Holy Trinity. Yeah, it's just the Grim Reaper cartoon. It's one of my favorite genres, I guess. This is antiques, collectibles, bric-a-brac, and garbage. Also, another one of my favorite genres. Here lies Hokey Pokey. Travis P. Changing cat litter is his passion. This is, I don't know if you can read it back there. It's a boy with a dunce cap, and it says dunce, and the dunce cap says bitch. So this is a cartoon sort of about how I feel about living in the suburbs, where we moved when we had our second kid. This is a magazine called Beginning Yarder, and it doesn't really get too much into the nitty-gritty. It's like basic. So you have like, say hello to grass. What the hell is mulch? Rake or hoe, which is which? And no, you don't want a pool. And then my favorite is, so you're outside, now what? And I think this sort of vaguely has something to do with once I was out in the backyard, which is not an ordinary occurrence. I just kind of decided I would just go out in the backyard. This happens maybe twice a year. And my husband said it was such a weird sight to see me out there. He said it looked like a deer had wandered into Saks. This is the not in the mood for human interaction line. This is a desk joke, I guess. Too early to begin working on and too late to do anything about. Trivia night in apartment 8G. Who am I? Why am I here? What is the point of all this rigmarole? This is 56% can't do the math and 54% won't do the math. This is self-help books for the newly dead. 5 people you should avoid in heaven, eating for eternity, and who moved my urn? This is the little engine that coulda, woulda, shoulda. I knew I could, so why didn't I? It's the basic question. I guess this is a Marie Kondo sort of joke. The life-changing magic of shoving everything into a huge, hefty bag and leaving it for somebody else to deal with. Yeah. And I thought I would include this. This was not from the New Yorker. I did questions for a while for a magazine called The Sciences. And this was... it was a really interesting magazine. It was the National Academy of Sciences, and for a while they published this magazine that they had an incredible image bank, and they matched up scientific articles with art. So, like, if they had an article about cell division or something, they would have, like, Larry Poons or somebody. If it was about, like, geometry, and maybe they would have like Joseph Albers or somebody. So the person who was in charge was really good at matching this up. I thought it was really wonderful. But they had asked me to do the back page cartoon for a while, so this is one of those. And these were actual questions that my son asked me when he was 7 years old. Is there an oil that is really sour that they give kids? And I think that this came from the cartoons when they gave them, was it castor oil? And I remember being fascinated by that when I was a kid, because when I was a kid and watching these cartoons, castor oil was no longer, but it's still, you hear castor oil. And how much is a zebra worth? If you shot a bullet, would it go into space? Are there poisonous cactuses that could kill you if you got pricked? How many degrees can melt skin? Are there aliens? Could there be? How many? 25,000? Are monkeys ever mean? How about small monkeys? how much do wigs cost? Could they cost $1 million? You know, kids have this strange fascination with money, I have to say. And most people I know, their kids do somehow pick up that they don't know what it is, but they know it's important. And they ask these really strange questions. And it's not on this list, but I just suddenly remembered this other question that my son, maybe he was a little older. He said, if we sold our house and we sold everything in our house and we took all that money and we put it in a giant jar and we lived in the woods and we sold all our clothes and we sold all our pots, would we have $1 million? And yeah, I really did not know how to answer it. But anyway, is the president still alive? It's a question I ask myself quite often. Is the man who walked on the moon rich? Is he richer than us? Do you have to get special markings to go to China? And I think he was thinking about vaccinations, maybe, and he just hadn't quite. And then this was my favorite. If a kid got born with 3 legs and his parents wanted to leave the extra leg on, presumably so they could like take him around and like get money, I don't know, maybe get money. I don't actually know why the parents would leave the, could the doctor force them to let the kid have the leg removed? I mean, he was 7, you know? All right. Yeah. This is a sort of, I think people who went to art school might get this joke more than anybody else. You know, you kind of come in and you're like drawing and it's like, this is what I do and this is when I draw. And then it's like suddenly like, that's not good anymore. You need to kind of do this sort of weird drawing that you can talk about for like, you know, an hour and a half. That a friend of mine, her daughter is an incredible animator and she calls it pondering art. It's like when you go to the museum and there's a pen like leaning up against a baseboard and or maybe 3 pens, but it means something about freedom. And the person will like ask you, you know, you will ask the person and then they can explain, they can talk for an hour why the pens leaning against the baseboard means. So this is art school. And then you come out of art school and it's all like, I don't even know what. And then you go back to drawing what you were doing before. And this is, yeah, it's what most of what I cook looks like. This was the very first cartoon that I sold to the New Yorker in 1978. And I've been asked by a lot of people, well, what does it mean? And why is it funny? And to me, this was like, first of all, I never intended to become a cartoonist for the New Yorker. My dream was to be a cartoonist for the Village Voice. And I was selling cartoons to the Village Voice, which was also publishing many of my heroes, Jules Feiffer, Stan Mack, Mark Allen Stamety, these people whose work was much more idiosyncratic than most of the work that I saw in the New Yorker. It was very personal. It was not gag cartoons. It was narrative. And that's where I was sort of gravitating, and also the National Lampoon, where I was selling cartoons. But my parents subscribed to the New Yorker, and I thought, well, I should try, you know, because I want to make a living as a cartoonist. This is what I want to do. So I called them up, and I found out when their drop-off day was. And the drop-off day is, it's for people who not only don't know anything, but they not only don't know anybody at the magazine, but they don't know anything. I mean, I certainly didn't know. I was 23. I didn't even know who the editor of the magazine was. I just found out, you know, okay, drop-off day is Wednesday. I'll go in. I'll bring in, I think I brought in like 60 cartoons. Is it too many? Is it too few? I don't know. And I went the next week to pick it up. And I looked inside to, you know, as I was going to get on the elevator to look for the rejection note, which was, you know, sort of famous, you know, that like, you know, thank you for considering us, but blah. And then there was a note from Lee Lorenz, who was the cartoon editor, to come back and see him. And this was a real shockaroo. So I did. And he pulled this cartoon out and he said, we're going to buy this. And I was not only shocked that I was selling a cartoon to them, but also this was maybe one of the most personal ones I'd done. This is the kind of thing that I do, like when I'm in my studio and I'm by myself and I can't think about it. I'm doodling and I'm making up stuff that makes me laugh. And just like I make up lists of names, I make up like weird countries with funny names, and just like make up stuff that I think is funny. And it's not really for any reason. It's just makes me laugh. I think like, bye, maybe you don't do this, but I don't know. Anyway. So anyway, he told me to start coming back every week and submitting a group of cartoons. This was Lee Lorenz. Years later, he told me that when my cartoons started running, a lot of people were very upset, like especially some of the older cartoonists. They really did not like my stuff. They thought it was a very big mistake. And one of them asked him if he owed my family money. But it's funny because over the years, not all of them, but a couple of them told me, and it wasn't just the cartoonists, a couple of the editors that I later became good friends with, they told me that it took a while, but then they started, I wore them down maybe. But anyway, this is another very early one. This is In a Quandary, The Voice of Reason. It's not such a big thing. Just put the galoshes on. The Voice of Conscience. Mom will be mad if you don't put them on. The Voice of Practicality. It's raining. Why don't you just wear them? And the Voice of Binky. Toss them out the window. This is another very early one, and this is a kid in math class. I'm just going to tell you what it is in case you can't read it from the back. And they're looking at, they're in the middle of this math test, and everybody is, and they really don't understand anything. This is really from life. This is me. In the middle of a math test, and like just sweat dripping out. It's like horrible. I don't understand anything. This is like calculus. And then suddenly it's just like, this doesn't matter. I'm not going to be a calculist. I don't care. It doesn't matter at all. And it was a kind of the first time. My parents were teachers, so I grew up thinking, school, like you had to do well. You had to ace every test. You had to, if you got like under 90, like I got hell for that, under 90 was really pushing it. It was really more like under 93, 90 was like almost failing. But, this was like, oh my God, it really doesn't matter. This is another very early one, and I include it because this is the Cranes. It's a mailbox in the Midwest. It says, the Cranes, 1,022,796 West 79th Street. And I like this cartoon especially because the way it works at the New Yorker is you don't just submit one cartoon. You submit like a group of cartoons every single week, and then they take a cartoon or they don't. They buy maybe 1 out of 6 or out of 8 or whatever. So I still remember this. This was back in the day where we came in person to see Lee Lorenz. So he would always have this little folder on his desk where the cartoons that had the sketches, because then you take the sketch that they buy, you take that home and you do the finish. So he would have this folder on his desk of all the sketches that they bought that week. And, there's like 40 people or so on staff, and maybe they buy like 20, 25 cartoons. So you don't sell every week. But anyway, I remember this. He pulls out my sketch, and it's this same idea, but the drawing of the mailbox, the flag thing is sticking out perpendicularly from the door. And Lee said, "What is this?" And I said, "That's the handle." And the thing is, I had never had a mailbox like this because I always lived in apartments. It was, I had never had a regular mailbox. And Lee, I wish I still had the drawing. He drew a mailbox for me, and he explained the mechanics of it. And, like, I don't want to, like, brag or anything, but, like, I have one now. And like I know I'm like really good at putting that flag up, and every time I put the flag up, it's like, look at you, look at you just flipping that flag up like a normal person who's had one of these. Oh, I've had one since I was a child. Yes, I have. I've always known but I still look at this and I say, the flag is so tiny. I still had no idea what it was really. Anyway, this is the inside of body experience, which I feel like every morning, once again, here I am. Which brings me to this book that I'm going to talk some about. This is my new book, I Must Be Dreaming, and I'm going to read a couple of quotes which I love about this. The unconscious has a rare sense of humor. It makes delightful, ingenious puns, jokes, and comic improvisations. We are all creative geniuses in our sleep. And this is from Harry A. Wilmer. He's a psychiatrist and a Jungian. I read a couple of his books, and I just love him because I love Jung. This is a quote from Carl Jung. For me, dreams are a part of nature which harbors no intention to deceive but expresses something the best it can. According to many people, dreams as a conversational topic should be avoided, along with aches and pains. Only shrinks are interested, and maybe not even them. Maybe it's because, as Heraclitus, and of course I have to put the asterisk in here because, just in case, Greek philosopher from 500 BC, who also believed that sleeping and dreaming were proof that life and death were not opposites, but different points along a continuum. Proof is a strong word. I prefer inkling, but, it was proof, as Heraclitus once wrote, the awake share a common world, but in sleep we each turn to a private world of our own. This private world aspect means that something I might learn in a dream, that I can fly by jumping in the air, going horizontal, and swimming my way down Broadway, hovering 10 feet off the ground, might not be scientifically accurate. Ever since I was a kid, I was interested not only in the content of my dreams, but in the fact that one dreamed at all. Why didn't I switch off when I fell asleep, like the TV channels did at the end of their programming day, the way they used to? What was this mishmash of stuff that projected itself inside my head like my own weird theater that showed nonsensical movies on a nightly basis? So I've always been interested in this. I've always been interested, in these woo-woo kind of, consciousness sort of things. I guess this was probably about 2019. I started to draw up some of my dreams and post them on Instagram. And this was the first one I posted. It was just so specific and so odd. My mother and her friend, a man named Bissell, had come into possession of O.J. Simpson's famous glove. This Bissell guy telephoned her to tell her of this great business idea. We can rent it out for parties. As a matter of fact, I'm wearing it right now. My mother had a different opinion. That glove belongs in a safety deposit box. This is another one that I had posted. For some reason, I was suddenly responsible for an infant girl. Also, I was not wearing any pants. Oh, for the love of God. The baby was heavy and needed a diaper. I'm saying, you weigh a ton. A woman offered to lend me pants, but there were strings attached. These were my grandmother's. They're very special to me, and I'll want them back. And this just happened a couple of days ago, and my mind is still blown. Okay, so this dream is in the book. I had a dream about Danny DeVito, and 2 days ago I was in New York, and I did an interview at WNYC. And who was on before me but Danny DeVito? And I guess somebody showed him my page in this dream book, and suddenly we were like, hugging. And it was just like, I can't believe this. So I dreamed that I was married to Danny DeVito. I like Danny DeVito. He's hilarious, but he's not somebody I think about very often. In my dream, he lay with his head in my lap, gazing up at me with adoration, and I thought, I'm not in love with him, but it's nice to be adored, so maybe this will work out. And the black scrawl is his signature. It's his autograph, and it says, "Oh, so nice, love," and I think that says Danny DeVito. And it was just like, this is just the weirdest, most wonderful thing that has ever happened. So, and this is I don't know if you guys know what a lucid dream is. It's like a dream where you sort of know you're dreaming, but you continue to dream. So I'm on the subway, and my phone rings. I answer, I say, hello? It's my husband. You sound weird. Why do you sound weird? Of course I sound weird. I'm dreaming. And dental dreams are I have a lot of them. So, okay, Kissinger and dentistry equals why. As I was walking into my dental appointment, Henry Kissinger was walking out, and he's looking at this old BlackBerry. I sat in the chair. The dentist gave me a shot of Novocaine, which was painful. Even though it was just local anesthesia, I went into the very rarely experienced dream within a dream. I dreamed within a dream that I was in a dentist's chair in Tel Aviv. You know how you sort of know these things in dreams, huh? Then, still within the dream, I woke up. My dentist said, I'm not going to be able to work on you today. My hands are still too sore from the stress of working on Kissinger. And he showed me his hands, and yeah, they looked kind of sore. And I told him about my Tel Aviv dream, which was followed by a conversation about dreams versus reality. I said, you can tell this is reality as opposed to when I was in Tel Aviv. And he goes, that's for sure. Everyone has recurring dreams. Is our brain trying to tell us something that evidently we haven't heard the last 70 times? Or is the dream manufacturing area feeling a little lazy? I have no idea why, but here are some of my classics. Alone at a party. I have a terrible disease. I have acute blarnitis. New York City has an unusual neighborhood. A beach in Midtown. Well, I'll be. Once again, I have lost my purse. The subway is different today. And here is like one train, and it's pulling up to someplace in the Alps. Too many birds, not enough cages. I happen to own 2 parrots, so maybe. Plane crashing in the distance. My legs don't work. There's actually a physical reason for this. Pregnant and old. Not a happy dream. It's like, this will not end well. Tooth issues. This is also recurring dreams. Tooth loss dreams are very common and have been written about since people started to write about dreams. They've been said to signify everything from loss of power, sexual anxiety, major life changes coming, problems with communication, vanity and embarrassment, to tooth pain while sleeping. Makes sense, I guess. Can't find hotel room. I'm in a foreign city and I can't remember the name of the hotel where I'm staying or its address. If I find the hotel, I can't remember the room and I have to find the manager, which presents a whole new set of problems. And then the high school dream, which I know everybody I know pretty much has. I'm wandering the halls of my high school, but I have lost my schedule, and at some point I realize I've already graduated, and all of this worrying is for nothing. Does this stop me from having the dream again and again? Not a bit. This is like one of those weird, I don't know why there's a beach in Manhattan, but somewhere west of 11th Avenue. And in the dream, I know it's 11th Avenue. You suddenly enter an area that looks like the Sahara Desert. The sand is very fine, sort of pinkish orange. There are lots of dunes and no plants. One fun thing, in the sand, there are tons of conch shells. Some of them are a little chipped, though. When I was a child, I had a lot of fears, or as my supremely anxious father referred to his fears, concerns. Diseases were a big one, also fires, especially those that could start within the apartment walls. This had happened to Helen Keller. I remember that from one of those books that the Scholastic Book Services, she'd like touch the wall near her bed. I didn't know there was anything in the walls. This was like not good to know, I also had a lot of nightmares. From the ages of 7 to 9, before I fell asleep, I insisted that my mother recite to me what we called the 4 things. You will never go blind or cross-eyed. No wonder my kid is thinking about kids with 3 legs, right? You will never lose any of your permanent teeth. I used to constantly check them for signs of looseness. You will not have any nightmares. It didn't always work, but it had to be said anyway. And I will stay awake until you're fast asleep. She had to say this. I still have nightmares now and then, but as an adult, I find them as interesting as I find them distressing. Recently, I dreamed about a horrible creature called a Pringle. Like the chip, right? A Pringle looked like a cross between a weasel and a naked mole rat, and it was chasing me. The thing about Pringles is, if you see one in your house, you have to leave and never come back. They are a very bad omen. My husband, who I had accidentally awakened, said I was waving my arms around like a marionette. And the minute I woke up, I jotted down some details. So you can sort of see I included a photo of this very rough kind of writing, and I translated, the scrawls for people who are reading it. But this Pringle, it's like you don't want that. Here's a dream. To save humanity, there was a water shortage on Earth, but I had a genetic defect that I made tons of saliva. I kept people alive by drooling into their mouths. Everyone was grossed out, but it was either take my drool or die. Sometimes I dream about celebrities. I don't know why. As the Danny DeVito, random people. I learned that Elizabeth Taylor always traveled with her own stove when she went on tour. Amazingly, it looked exactly like the tiny stove in my apartment in New York. I have a little studio apartment in the city, and it has one of those really old-fashioned stoves that has 4 burners, but it looks about like 2/3 the size of a normal stove, basically. It's probably from the 40s or something. Anyway, I once dreamed a couplet about a man named Orny L. When I woke up, I wrote it down. Something, Orny L. When he got mad, he'd ring a bell. I added a couple of lines, and that week submitted it to the New Yorker as a cartoon, which they rejected. And this was it. Here's a story I'd like to tell about the poet, Orny L. When he got mad, he'd ring a bell. I didn't know him very well. Because I dream sometimes in cartoon ideas. I think, if you're in a certain profession, you probably have dreams related to your profession. I don't know. But this is a very specific, yet very idiotic cartoon idea that came to me within a dream. And I remember thinking in the dream this was the best idea anybody had ever had. And it was swan dancing. Get it? It's swans square dancing. Swan dancing. I mean, why? Art envy dream. I was with some cartoonist friends, and we were looking at comic books, not superheroes, more modern ones. The one I was reading was about a red dog-like creature named Question. And yes, I know about Clifford, the big red dog, but he was made of simple geometric shapes, and the comic was wordless. Question mostly walked, but sometimes he hovered in the air. It was the greatest comic I had ever seen. As a matter of fact, I was extremely envious of the artist that had created it. I felt myself start to wake up. No, not yet. No, I'm still. And when I woke up, I was relieved. It was like, oh, I'm so glad that nobody made this comic. It was just too good. The New Yorker, this is a dream that actually became a cartoon that the New Yorker published, and this is news from Dreamland. Last night, I dreamed about shopping for new bed slippers. I tried on some big fluffy ones, but I didn't like them. Then I tried on a pair of cute green slippers, which I realized could double as penny loafers, but I would have to put insoles in them because they had no arch support. Sad. And the store did not sell arch support insoles, but I bought them anyway. And the lady says, we do not carry those. My credit card was square rather than rectangular, and it had a picture of a wheat field on it. The lady wasn't sure the machine would take it, but it did. When the machine took the card, it made a happy little chime. The end. According to the Kabbalah, the dream state is a sort of refresher or re-energizer for the soul. When we are awake, we are aware of time, but when we are dreaming, we're not only free of time, but also free of the limitations of motion. The Kabbalah also believes in the predictive nature of dreams, perhaps because when we dream, we are free from the linear, consecutive nature of the way we experience time in our waking lives, and maybe while we're in that state, we can get a glimpse of the future. I'm like, I don't know, but this is, who knows? I don't know. And the drawing underneath is, it's a little soul spa, and it's before and after. It's much revived. The Kabbalah says our soul is comprised of 60 parts. I love that. I don't know how they came up with that number. When we sleep and dream, 59 parts of our soul leave our bodies, and the final part remains to make sure we keep breathing, etc. I don't know how they came up with that number. And this is something else that I learned that I loved about the Baku. The Baku, according to Japanese legend, the Baku is a creature that eats bad dreams. It has an elephant's trunk, rhinoceros eyes, an oxtail, and tiger paws. A child in Japan who was having a nightmare would wake up and say 3 times, Baku-san, Baku-san, come eat my dream. Then hopefully all would be well and the kid would go back to sleep. However, you didn't want to call on him too frequently. If eating the nightmare didn't satisfy him, it would eat the summoner's hopes and desires. Haruki Murakami once said, "For me, writing a novel is like having a dream. Writing a novel lets me intentionally dream while I'm awake." Working on my weekly group of cartoons for the New Yorker sometimes feels dreamish, especially when it's going well. I sit at my drawing table for hours, thinking, doodling, jotting down ideas that might become cartoons on a nearby scrap of paper. At the end of the workday, the scraps containing these half-baked ideas go into my idea box. When I look at them later, some ideas gel into cartoons, but many do not. Here's a couple of real ones. Salad bar from 1066. Turkey and therapy. Sometimes it's just a single word, podiatrist. Periodically, I toss a bunch into the garbage. When one of my kids was around 11, he looked into my studio and saw me staring slack-jawed at a blank piece of paper, which, incidentally, one of my cartoonist friends, Bill Woodman, incredible cartoonist, he called the blank piece of paper the blazing island of white. And anyway, my son saw me just staring at this piece of paper, and he goes, "Mom, what are you doing?" And I said, "Thinking." And letting your thoughts take you where they will. Thinking is a lot like dreaming. Perhaps the reason we dream is not just one thing. Maybe it's more of a combo pack, which form a pie chart. And the asterisk is where I say underneath it, cartoonists, we love pie charts. We really do. We draw them all the time. It's very rare to see one actually in person, but we think in that way. So, 25, this is what I think, 25%, it's a connection to the personal unconscious, which would be more Freud. 25% connection, called it the royal road to the unconscious. That's Freud. 25% connection to the collective unconscious. 12.5% info sorting and pruning. 12.5% helps you stay in sleep mode while the body does body things. 12.5% rehearsals for unexpected situations. 12.5% creative problem solving. And now we'll move on to the short next part of this. And this, I got some of these profitable hobbies magazines from eBay because I have a lot of weird craft hobbies, and I thought maybe I would learn something, but I don't know what is going on here with I really honestly don't know why she's putting a flower on top of the can, but I just like it anyway, and I like the little doll. And anyway, I got very deeply into Pisanki eggs for a while, and Pisanki eggs are very interesting. They're not painted. You draw on them. It's just a chicken egg, a regular chicken egg, and you draw on the chicken egg with wax, and then you dip them in dye from the lightest color to the darkest. So you would for me, I draw a sketch on the egg with pencil, and it still has all the gook inside, because I want to create maximum tension and pain, because you know, if the egg breaks after all this work, you know, then I'll just really want to lie down and die. But also the thing is, if you take all the gook out before you start working, then the egg floats on top of the liquid. So they both have their pluses and minuses, and you just have to decide which way you want to do it. But like, I'll sketch it, and then the first color I'll do will be white. And I put the wax, the melted wax, I draw where I want the egg to stay white, and then I dip it into yellow, and I go from the lightest to the darkest. White is always the first color, black or dark blue or whatever is the last color. And then at the end, you poke a hole in the bottom with this tool, and you use this tool called a Blosfix to remove, the one I have is called a Blosfix. It pumps the innards of the egg out, and then you hopefully don't break it, and then you carefully melt the wax off over a candle, and you wipe it. And I just find it absolutely incredible. Just the colors are so vibrant. So yes, I did learn the traditional technique from somebody who knew it and did a few traditional ones, but I wanted to see whether it would work with my style, and it turned out that it did. And the colors to me are just, you know, mesmerizing. So, another thing I got really into is rug hooking, and this is a big rug. It's about like 3.5 by 5 feet. It's the biggest one I've done. This is my father having one of his breakfasts, and he wouldn't eat he just liked like little bits and pieces of things, and it would drive my mother crazy because he'd have to take everything out of the refrigerator, and he just wanted it all there in front of him. But I did this. This is really for him, but of course it was after he passed. But I like thinking about him, so that's that. And it's strips of wool. It's little wool that you're pushing, loops that you're pushing through burlap. Here's another one. You might be able to see the wool strips a little clearer here. And then I got like deeply into hand embroidery. This I did when I got into it when coronavirus started. And the thing that I enjoyed was I had a book of fabric samples from one of those like upholstery type stores. And I looked at this and I thought, oh God, you know, that's totally coronavirus. So I just pushed it a little bit farther. But I like to incorporate the design that's already on the fabric in my project. So this was something that the fabric had this like white sort of crossy kind of bar thing. And I looked at it and thought like, oh my God, of course it's a window. And she's behind it and she's looking out. And this was also during the pandemic. And I submitted it to Françoise Mouly, who's the covers editor of The New Yorker. And they wound up using it on the cover. But one funny detail about this is that David Remnick was the editor of The New Yorker. He was creeped out by her blank eyes. So I put a little dot in. Here's another. I think that I have done the only 2 like actual embroidered covers. This was there was a tech issue that also coincided with Mother's Day. So it's a motherboard, kind of made up. This is Insomnia. You can see the fabric pattern were these swirls. This was these weird plant guys. The guy in the background is completely drawn. The guy underneath the plant. The top part of his head was printed, but everything else is pretty much invented. This is Don't Make Me Go Outside, which is pretty much my mantra. It's like the worst thing to me is like going to have like lunch or dinner with somebody and they go, let's eat outside. And it's like, oh God. So this is a street. I guess the light and the shadows, it just reminded me of a street. And in my mind, it's like in the West 30s, because there was a magic store named Tannen's, and that's kind of to that. This is a more recent one, birds, and I'm started to experiment with putting some beads in, which is fun. This is a close-up, so you can see the different stitches and the beads and everything. And this is the back, because really, I don't give a crap what the back looks like. I really don't. And this was on this is just not a fabric. This is my favorite quote. One of my favorite quotes ever. When a writer is born into a family, the family is finished. It's a Polish poet, Czesław Miłosz. I think it really pretty much says everything, says it better than I could say it. And I'm going to finish up with these last 3 slides. This is an end is near guy, and his wife is saying, "You wish." This is the vain but realistic queen. Mirror, mirror on the wall, who, if she lost 10 pounds and had her eyes and her neck done and had the right haircut, could, in her age group, be the fairest one of all? And yet another tombstone gag, tuned in, turned on, dropped out, dropped in, worked out, saved up, dropped dead. And that's it. So I think we're gonna do like Q&A. Oh, I see it. Okay. So, okay.
I've had this on my refrigerator since, I think, 1988.
Oh my God.
Bad Housekeeping.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Which is inspirational. Defrosting with Dynamite.
Yeah. Yeah.
My question is, I'm too short. My question is, you're so talented. Were you appreciated by your family and by your teachers, or did they understand you?
I think my parents, they both loved what they did. You know, my mother, she was an assistant principal. She had been a teacher. My father was a teacher. And they really believed that it was important to find out what you wanted to do. And that if you found your passion, that was a very important thing, and that you should follow that. And I don't think they fully understood my sense of humor. They were born in 1912. You know, they were from a whole different generation. When their friends came over, they told jokes. You know, like 2 guys on a desert island. And one of them, like, there's 2 synagogues, and one of them, you know, and you know that joke. You know that joke?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you guys all know this joke? Yeah. All right. So this is what they did. They exchanged jokes. And I don't think I've ever been at a dinner party where people told jokes, you know. But anyway, so they didn't always fully understand, but they subscribed to the New Yorker. They were very proud. And I think they were happy that I found something that I like to do. Teachers, I had a couple of teachers who were wonderful, and a lot who just, you know, art school especially, it was like, why are you not doing that? You know, if you want to be funny, why don't you just go to clown school? You know, I mean,
Thank you.
You know. Anyway, hi.
So I know you already kind of brushed over this, but I've been wondering, what is your mindset while you're drawing cartoons?
It's a good question. I think I'm looking for something that it's very hard to put into words. It has to interest me. Sometimes there's like a story. Sometimes it's something that makes me laugh. Sometimes it's something that annoyed me. Sometimes it's something that is so... it might even be something that is sort of weird, but it somehow makes me laugh in some weird way. It just has to get to me in a certain way, and I feel the need to draw it up. Mm-hmm. So that's...
Thank you.
All right.
Many of your works have a very surreal, unhinged nature. What would you say is your inspiration for this, or what would you say has shaped your sense of humor?
Probably being left alone a lot as a kid. Yeah, I was an only child. Oh, it's very sad. But yeah, I just I was in some ways, you know, it was lucky I got to make up my little world. So, yeah.
Thank you.
So you just had a cartoon about insomnia, which I think you've had more than one cartoons about insomnia. So when you seem to have a lot of dreams, and I'm wondering whether for you, dreaming is associated with insomnia or actually with good sleep or neither or something in between.
I associate it with good sleep.
Okay.
Because usually when I have insomnia, it's like, why can't I fall asleep? I have totally lost the ability. I don't even remember what falling asleep is. Like, what is this? I'm lying here. There's like nothing happening, you know. So, yeah.
Hello.
Hi.
You spoke earlier about how you would go into the New Yorker to show your sketches.
Yes.
So now that they know you, and now that we have more technology, what is your submittal process like now, and what is it like for people that aren't known to the New Yorker?
Oh,
Do they still have the walk-in day?
They don't have in-person meetings anymore, unfortunately. Everybody submits. You put together a PDF, and you email it, and then you find out through email whether you've sold that week. That's how it happens.
That's for you still?
Oh yeah. Oh,
In this-
very much so.
So you go through that submittable, it's called?
The submissions. Yeah. I mean, everybody, for some reason, since I started in 1978, the group of drawings has always been called the batch, as in like, are you working on your batch? Have you finished your batch? Did you send your batch in? You know, who knows? It's like, I don't know, cartoon factory talk or something. But yeah, we now submit it electronically. And I still get rejected all the time. It's
Thank you.
That's, if you can do something else, that's what you should do. Don't do this.
So do you leave little notes for your family members with weird little cartoons on them?
I do tend to doodle. Yeah, I do. Not all the time, but it's a kind of compulsion, I guess.
What are some of the favorite sort of like what more recently? What is one that you can think of just for?
I don't know why, but for some reason, from the time my husband and I started going out, which was a very long time, it was 1980, we were like just children. He does not have a trapezoid-shaped head, but like whenever like I left him a note, I would do this little drawing where like I'd make his head like a trapezoid shape, and like, you know, I don't know, just I'll be back in like half an hour. I'm doing this like errand or something, and then and then I started like drawing my own head. So like for some reason now he's doing it. So for some reason we are like trapezoid heads. I don't know why we don't have trapezoid shaped heads. But it's a funny shape.
Thank you. With all your success, does it still bother you when cartoons are rejected, and are there any particular ones that just drove you crazy?
Oh, all the time. It's awful to be rejected. And 1 week, if things are going well, I can, 1 week is like not so bad. 2 weeks, I think, okay, they've caught on. I'm a phony. They hate me. And, it can stretch on to like 3, 4, 5 weeks, and that's very depressing because then also you're starting to like get, I'd better make a really funny cartoon, and that's when you wind up with like swan dancing or something. You're just not thinking right. And yes, one thing about rejected cartoons though is that I have ones that are like I know there's a good cartoon in it, and this is not like some kind of sneaky the editor will never notice. It's part of doing this is that if you have a cartoon that you really believe in, you can take that cartoon, you can resubmit it as is, or I like to rework it. I like to see if I can make it better because I've had cartoons that they bought after like 3 or 4 submissions and iterations, but maybe they're just sick of seeing it and they want to, But then I have ones that they haven't, that I swear I still think it's a good idea. So anyway.
Can you sell rejected cartoons elsewhere?
Yes, but there's so few places, you know. It's not like, I mean, even when I started, there weren't many places. The Village Voice, National Lampoon, but still, you know, there was Red Book, there were a few places, but the golden age of cartooning had passed, magazine cartooning, you know, so.
Thank you.
Anyway. Oh. Any other questions? Oh, yeah.
Have you read the book about Ernie Bushmiller?
The question was, have I read the book about Ernie Bushmiller? I have it, and I have started it because I love Ernie Bushmiller so much. He's, yeah, those are, yeah, it's a great book. It's a great, he was a great cartoonist. Just really wonderful. Surreal. He was surreal and unhinged, for sure. Yes?
Have you ever had therapy?
Have I ever had therapy? Well, I never. That's between me and my therapist. And any other? Yeah.
In your embroidery, do you do the traditional like embroidery stitches, or is it all sort of more organic? And do you like embroider in a hoop and everything?
I use the traditional stitches, the chain stitch, the French knot, the back stitch, the running stitch, the satin stitch. Sometimes I see really complicated ones online, and I think, oh, I should really learn that. But I do sometimes use a hoop, but not always. When the fabric gets very heavy, it doesn't really fit in the hoop that well. But at the beginning, it helps pull it taut. So.
Thanks.
You did an incredible book on aging.
The book, yes.
Were your parents still alive?
No. The question was about the book I did about my parents. Were my parents still alive? No, they were not.
Roz?
Yes.
Yes, I would love to see a book of the stuff that doesn't go in the New Yorker, those embroideries and the eggs and the stuff like that with the vivid colors. I think they're great.
Oh, thank you.
You would make a
Thanks.
whole book.
Well, it might. I mean, like those profitable hobbies, you know, those magazines. Well, I guess, oh, yes, sorry.
I wanted to ask a question again about the book about caring for your parents.
Yes.
The title was so great. So my background is aging policy, and so all of my gerontology friends and I loved it. And I'm wondering, was that pretty cathartic for you?
I didn't really think of it as catharsis as much as a way to remember them. You know, I wanted to remember what they ate, how they stood, what they said, how they talked, the things that I loved, the things that really pissed me off, their weird conversations with one another. I didn't want it to all, and I think for me, writing and drawing is a way of keeping things from all falling into that kind of miasma of the past, you know, of just it happened back then, you know, some big mush, big gray stew, you know, so, yeah.
And we do have one more question.
Okay.
And then we'll get to the signing line.
Okay.
I'm just wondering how what's funny has changed.
Oh, it always changes. This is when you look at New Yorkers from the 1930s and the 1940s. I mean, there are things that were funny back then that are so completely dated now that humor is always shifting. So yeah, I think that's part of things.
But tragedy doesn't.
Yeah, tragedy doesn't. That's interesting. I have to think about that. Yeah, that's yeah. All right. Well, thank you. I'm going to sit here.